And good morning, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News Now, coming to you from our digital desk. We are going to be taking you into the Cuyahoga County Court. Right there you see Leander Bissell, 41 years old. He has been found guilty of murder, involuntary manslaughter, felonious assault, aggravated vehicular homicide, failure to comply, failure to stop after an accident. He was found guilty of hitting and killing Cleveland Firefighter Johnny Tetrick. This all happened back on November 19th of 2022. Tetrick was on I-90 after an accident. He was there as a part of the response by the Cleveland Fire Department, Cleveland Police on I-90 when Bissell, in the video, and more than likely I'm seeing a screen is set up there. We may actually get to see the video of him doing this. In court during the trial, it was shown that there was a backup because of the accident. Bissell drives around, swerves around cars to get through this accident and hits Tetrick as he was picking up some of the debris in the middle of the highway. Let's take you live now into court with Judge Timothy McCormick presiding.
Or B4B, excuse me. Felony of the third degree. Count 5, failure to comply under revised code 2921.33A, first degree misdemeanor. Was found guilty of count 6, aggravated vehicular homicide under revised code 2903.06A2A, felony of third degree. And finally, count 7, failure to stop after an accident under revised code 4549.02A13. In a prior proceeding, the defendant pled guilty in case number 678102 to trafficking in drugs, felony of the second degree. On behalf of the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. Before the state says its piece with regard to the sentencing of Mr. Bissell, Firefighter Johnny Tetrick's daughters would like to address the court.
Very good.
Val?
State your name for the record, please.
My name is Fallon Tetrick. Good morning, Your Honor. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today, to give you a small glimpse of how much our father meant to us and what a loss my sisters and I are experiencing and will continue to experience the rest of our lives. I'm the oldest of my dad's 3 daughters. My situation is a little more unique than that of my sisters in that my dad adopted me when I was little. He always told me that he fell in love with me first, even before my mom, and that he believed his entire reason for being put on this earth was to love my sisters and myself. My dad chose to love me and take care of me when the person that was supposed to would not. A lot has been said throughout the last 8 months about my dad and his life. I don't quite know if words will ever be able to fully articulate what a catastrophic loss my sisters, myself, my family, and my dad's fire brothers have and will continue to go through. Growing up as a fireman's child, you get used to sharing your parent with other people. You're taught selflessness at a young age, that there are people in need, and that is why your dad isn't home on your birthday, sporting events, or Christmas. You're prepared to say goodbye for the last time as he walks out of your bedroom after putting you to sleep at night because he might not come home the next day. You watch him cry and squeeze you and your sisters harder in bed because he pulled kids your age out of a fire where they did everything in their power to save them. You take calloused hands and 3 part-time jobs on top of being a fireman because he wanted a better life for you and your sisters. My dad served 27 years in the Cleveland Fire Department, and my sisters and I sacrificed 23, 18, and 20 of our own years with him to share. I thought I was prepared my whole life for this until it happened. I thought I was strong until I held my 18 and 20-year-old sisters as we decided what to do with our dad's body. I thought I had learned enough about life until I couldn't pick up the phone and call him. While my dad was a firefighter, first and foremost, he was our dad. Having sacrificed much of our childhood with him, I never for a minute thought we would have to sacrifice our future. My dad had a different love language that he spoke with all of us. Our language was spoken through work. When I was 9, my dad put me on a roof with him, which is where I learned to work hard for what you have and want in life. That anything worth having is earned, not given. That a bad day isn't a bad life, and that listening before you speak gets you out of a lot of trouble most of the time. He taught us that the only people who are victims are the ones who make themselves that in their mind. He taught us that we might not always be the prettiest person in the room, but that we could be the most loving, kind, and hardworking person. How do I fill those shoes? How do I step into that role for my sisters who are going to college? How do we walk down the aisle or have kids? How do we watch them graduate without their dad? How do we drive over that spot, which used to be one of our favorite places to drive, going home after seeing our dad for the first time in sometimes 48 hours? I pray that we remember the lessons that he taught us and that we end up half of the person or people that he was. I don't have the answers because he always did. I'm not sure how to end this, but to say that we're grieving and trying to understand how any good can come from this is the best I can do. I think my dad would tell me that something good will come from this tragedy, that justice will prevail, and that he forgives as he was forgiven. Thank you for your time.
Sounds like your father taught you some great things, and you picked up on
Thank you.
it. Good morning.
Good morning. I stand before you today to express the profound impact that the tragic loss of my beloved father has had on my life and the lives of all those who loved him. The man sitting in this courtroom took away not only a life, but the cornerstone of my existence, the most important person in my life. The void left by his absence is insurmountable and has caused immense pain and suffering every single day since that fateful event. My father was my guiding light, my mentor, and my rock. He provided unwavering love, support, and wisdom, shaping me into the person that I am today. His presence and influence were the pillars of strength that carried me through life's challenges. I cherished every moment we spent together, knowing that his unconditional love and unfailing support were irreplaceable. Words fall short when attempting to express the impact that my dad had, not only on my life, but the lives of countless others. He sculpted every value that I hold dear and shaped my faith in ways that words cannot fully capture. He was and is the embodiment of everything that I aspire to be. His unwavering presence in my life provided me with unfailing support, comfort, and guidance. He believed in me even when I doubted myself, and his belief fueled my determination to overcome the challenges that life left at my doorstep. His absence has left an indescribable void that is felt every single day. The world feels a little less vibrant without his infectious laughter and his comforting embrace. The wisdom he imparted continues to resonate with me, reminding me to stay true to my principles and to be compassionate towards others. Though he may not physically be here, his spirit lives on in every decision I make and every step that I take. I carry his legacy with me, cherishing the lessons he taught me and striving to make him proud. My dad will forever be the guiding light in my life, and I am grateful for the 20 years that I got to spend with him, though that time was cut much too short. The loss of my father has shattered my dreams drastically and altered the trajectory of my life. I find myself constantly haunted by the thoughts of all the significant milestones and experiences we will never share. He will never have the opportunity to witness my college graduation, walk me down the aisle on my wedding day, or hold his future grandchildren in his arms. These are moments that I always envisioned sharing with him, and the pain of his absence is a constant reminder of what has been stolen from my sisters and I. The emotional toll of losing my father in such a senseless act of violence is immeasurable. It's left a void that cannot be filled, causing a profound and lasting impact on my mental and emotional well-being. Grief has become a constant companion, and the pain lingers, affecting every aspect of my life. I struggle to find meaning and a purpose in a world that seems unjust and cruel, though I know my father would instruct me carefully to go over the words written in red to refocus my life, no matter how great the loss or how unbearable the pain. Romans 8:18 says, "I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us." The weight of this tragedy extends far beyond my personal loss. It has forever altered my dad's brothers on the Cleveland Fire Department and the dynamic of our family, leaving an emptiness that cannot be filled. The men before you today, my siblings, and all those who love my father have been deeply wounded by this heinous act. We struggle to find solace and rebuild our lives, forever marked by this devastating event. Your Honor, I implore you to consider the gravity of this crime and the profound impact it's had on my life and the lives of those left behind. I ask for justice to be served, not only for the sake of my father, but for the sake of countless individuals who have suffered at the hands of the defendant's actions. May the court render a fair and just judgment that reflects the immeasurable loss we have endured. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my personal experience as a result of this and to express the magnitude of pain and grief that we continue to endure. I trust that the court will consider these words as it deliberates. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to speak. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to speak today. I didn't know if I could capture all of the feelings and experiences that we've had in these past few months. And half the time I don't think I even understand what's going on inside myself. And then I thought of my father and how he always encouraged me to not only push myself further than I thought I could go, but to also share the gospel to as many people as I can. This opportunity, as much as I wish I didn't have it, allows me to share the foundation of who my father was. He was a servant of God and mankind in every way imaginable. He cared for people like no one else, and he was devoted to God in a way I can only hope to achieve. On my father's fire helmet, he painted out a Bible verse, John 15:13, which states, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." And I vividly remember the day he finished working on it and showed it to me. And I told him it was beautiful and I loved the meaning behind it, but to promise me if there was ever a situation to arose, that if he had to pick between himself and someone else, to please choose himself. He pulled me close and told me that he couldn't promise me that, and that he loved the people he worked with and the people that he helped, and that if any one of them were ever in danger, he would happily take their place. His answer worried me at the time, but I find peace knowing that he would not have traded places with anyone given the chance. This does not mean that the pain that I feel is dulled in any way. I would give absolutely anything to be held in my father's arms again. And to hear him say that everything's going to be okay. He was a man of great faith, an incredible firefighter, and a friend to everyone. But to me, he was just my dad. The man who hugged me when I cried, the man who never stopped picking my lunches for school, or putting Band-Aids on me despite my age. The man who always held my hand, the man who always had comforting hugs and words, the one who was always there when I needed him no matter how busy he was, and the man who loved the most unconditional love that a human being was capable of. I could tell you story after story about how truly wonderful and incredible he was. He was funny, kind, hardworking, humble, and so much more. He was known for his smile, his laugh, his mischievousness, his faith, and his reliability. You could call on him at any time and he would be there to help. I tell you this to show you that what I'm about to say is not an easy thing for me, and it does not come naturally. It was taught to me by an amazing man, and I would like to preface this with the reassurance that I still want justice for the death of my father. All actions have consequences, and I believe that what Mr. Bissell has done deserves severe consequences. What he has done is murder. A life was taken, and many others were drastically altered. I believe the consequence for this should be the loss to live the rest of his life as a free citizen. The recklessness of his actions and utter disregard for the safety of my father and all other workers that night is absolutely gut-wrenching to think about, and I hope justice will be served accordingly. Despite this, Mr. Bissell, I wish to tell you that I do not hate you. I think that would be a lot easier, and I hate what you've done. and all of the agony and grief it has caused me and the people that I love. I hate that I will have all of those images burned into my brain from both that night and this trial, and that I will never get to make new memories with him. But what I hate the most is that I know that there are so many people that my father could have touched in their lives that he will not get the opportunity to. So instead, I pray that this touches your life. Again, I do not hate you. In fact, I forgive you for what you've done. I just hope that whatever your life looks like now, it'll be used for the good of others and yourself. I pray that God changes you in the way that only He is capable of. I know that the loss of my father has already helped so many people see the gospel, but I hope that this helps you too. I hope that I see you one day in heaven as a brother in Christ. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Your Honor. On behalf of the state of Ohio, there's nothing that we could say on behalf of Johnny Tetrick that his daughters didn't already say, and probably far more eloquently than I ever could have. But one thing that the state wants to emphasize to this court kind of echoes what Eden just said, and that we are not here to judge Leander Bissell as a human being, but to judge his actions on November the 19th of 2022. And Your Honor saw those videos, and the calculated risk that was taken was, as Reagan said, were senseless. And if there's rarely a silver lining in anything, but the fact that Johnny Tetrick was a firefighter who laid down his life on that particular night can raise awareness. The high-profile nature of the fact that it was a Cleveland firefighter who was killed because of the calculated risks that someone took should serve as a message to each and every motorist on the freeways, on the roads, to take their time and to be careful. Because that could have been somebody with a disabled vehicle. It could have been somebody who was getting out after a collision, who was just a private citizen. And the state's going to take each and every one of those cases just as seriously as it took this one. The state filed its sentencing memorandum yesterday, Your Honor, and the state's position on sentencing is as follows. With regard to the homicide case, Your Honor, it's the state's position that counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 merge for the purposes of sentencing as their allied offenses of similar import. The state would elect the sentence on count 1, murder B, which does carry a mandatory sentence of 15 years to life. Count 5 was a misdemeanor that must by law run concurrent. And the state's position on count 7 is that the failure to stop after an accident does not merge. And as the state laid out in its sentencing memorandum, the state believes a consecutive sentence in that particular count is necessary. There were 2 separate calculated risks that were taken that night. One was to drive 50 miles an hour, almost 50 miles an hour, through 2 closed lanes. The second was not to stop after a very obvious collision. And that should be punished separately. One for the action of being so cold and callous that you continued moving on, that Mr. Bissell continued moving on. But the resources and the time it took not only the Cleveland Police Department's Vice Unit, its Special Investigations Unit, and 2 Cleveland Police Districts, the man hours it took over that 4-hour stretch to find this white Chevy Malibu, while other calls could have been made in the 3rd District and the 5th District, those officers could have been attending to something else. And the fact that the defendant did not take responsibility for a collision that particular night should be sentenced separately. With regard to the drug trafficking case, Your Honor, the state takes no position as to whether, Your Honor, is to sentence concurrent or consecutively. I would like to note, though, that by law it is a mandatory sentence of 2 to 8 years, and it does carry a mandatory fine of 1/2 of the total possible fine, up to 1/2 of the total possible fine of $15,000. The state would say, however, Your Honor, that the defendant had no idea what kind of drugs he was selling. And that's the most dangerous kind of peddler that we have in the year 2023. We have an epidemic of fentanyl, carfentanil, and other opioids that are being peddled as cocaine, as heroin, as ecstasy, and individuals who are selling these drugs at the street level, as Mr. Bissell is, never know what they're getting. And he acknowledges in those drug dealing text messages that he doesn't know what he has, but he's willing to sell them. And I want Your Honor to just take that into consideration when rendering your sentence. Thank you.
Anything further on behalf of the state?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. On behalf of the defendant?
Thank you, Judge. First and foremost, to the Tetrick family, I personally want to offer my condolences to you for this matter and having to sit for this trial. It was never our goal to have to put you through that, okay? I hope you understand that from the bottom of my heart. From the Brotherhood of the Firefighters, once again, I offer my deepest condolences to you and having you sit through this trial and testify to what you had to do that evening for your brother. I'm sorry for that as well, okay? Now, Your Honor, I want to be brief on behalf of Mr. Bissell. I just want to talk a little bit about him as he has to, of course, take responsibility for his actions that night. We'd like the court to know that Mr. Bissell is age 41 years old. He's a father of 4, 3 daughters, 1 son. The son is a newborn, Your Honor, not even 2 months old. Mr. Bissell, by all accounts, is a dedicated family man himself. He's supportive of all his children, his family, his friends. Everyone will say he's a good guy, will do anything for you at any time. Mr. Bissell has attended Tri-C, trying to better himself. He started his own clothing line. Some of that clothing was seized in this particular case. Once again, all in efforts to support himself, his family, and his friends. Talking to his employer, he was always described as a very hard worker, doing whatever is required of him and needed of him at his job. Now, Your Honor, we understand the court has a mandatory sentence to impose here. We would like the court to consider that mandatory minimum sentence, allow the parole board to do what they're hired to do, and just take into consideration all these things here today. I'd like to share the rest of my time with Mr. Bissell.
Anything further on behalf of the defense?
Your Honor, Mr. Bissell would like to address the court as well.
Very good.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning to everyone inside the courtroom. First and foremost, I, Leander Bissell, and my family send the sincerest condolence to Mr. Tetrick, his daughters, their mother, family, friends, co-worker, Ohio residents, also past, present, future firefighters nationwide. I deeply apologize for my actions. I'll never knowingly bring harm or hurt to anyone. I'm not a violent person. I'm not a murderer. I never seen violence as an acceptable way to resolve any difference. Overall, I apologize to the Tetrick family and others for the shock, anger, grief, and unconsolable moments they receive while their souls yearn with hatred, bitterness, unforgiveness towards me. I wish I can soothe the undeserving pain y'all going through. Numerous nights I cried for the Tetrick family. My actions is the reason Mr. Tetrick's no longer here. For his family and community, I especially want to say sorry to his daughters. To his daughters. A child-parent relationship is the most important and beautifulest feeling in the world. Loving and needing a father. A hero dad, a family hero, a community hero is gone. Mr. Tetrick occupation can never be replaced or fulfilled, nor his dad duties to love, protect, and provide, or his firefighter duties to help and serve our communities. My actions make my soul shake. This is not one of my proudest moments. I have a great respect for firefighters for the unselfish, heroic abilities they have risking their lives to save a total stranger. I'll forever have a delicate heart, delicate, remorseful heart. I've endured agony and pain also, and have to live with what I cause daily and for a lifetime. I'll need help emotionally and mentally also. Living with grief of what I've done and what I never do. A heavy burden I wear like clothing. My actions affected more than one person. It affects two families. My family doesn't condone the tragic death of Mr. Tetrick. They know and expect me to take accountability and deserve consequences for my actions besides murder. I'm no murderer. Since I received my indictment, I always was willing to plead to my official charges. I didn't only see or hit Mr. Tetrick crossing the street, bending over. I would have stopped. And dealt with the consequences I'm dealing with today. I didn't go into hiding. I didn't have my car. Again, I'm sorry and I apologize. I, Leander Bissell, send my sincerest condolences to Mr. Terry, his daughters, their mother, family, friends, co-workers, Ohio residents, also past, present, future firefighters nationwide. I'm sorry, Mr. Tetrick. I know your spirit is in this courtroom to seek justice, and my behavior has consequences. I want to apologize to courts all over the world. The best apology I can give is change behavior. To behave in a way that please me, public, family, and communities. I live the value-based life, positive goal-setting life. I've shown the ability to modify my behavior, avoid being locked up out of society, not being a repeated jailgoer. With working multiple jobs, attending college, and creating a clothing line, a talented, marketable skill to sustain future income for family, friends, and my community. I'm sad, hurt, disappointed in myself. Yet, I still have a kind heart with no consumed anger. So that doesn't stop me for being happy towards the Tetrick family, and especially his daughters. Y'all deserve justice. And it's your responsibility to keep his legacy alive through y'all. Because I want the same for my three daughters to do for me. Lastly, I want to apologize to my family and friends. My family, kids, lady, friends, and community. For the shock, emotional distress, embarrassment, unwanted attention y'all received throughout this tragic charged circumstance. I also want to thank y'all for being there emotionally and spiritually. Me in prison is an experience we not familiar with. Just know I stay positive. I'll try staying positive in a negative environment. I've been a model citizen. I'll be a model prisoner, doing motivational things like I was in the free world, back in the job, going to school and programs while serving my time. Days will be hard with loneliness, tearful nights. I pray bad days don't last, but no matter what, I still have my dignity, and I no longer have I'm no longer a mental hostage to this jail. Finally, freedom of mind now, from thinking about unknown consequences to receive. Now I'm working on self-forgiveness. I'll turn this mess into a message. Remember, broken crayons still color. Only thing I ask from my loved ones, and friends, is stay original. Be yourself. Everybody else is taken. Stay focused. Stay focused. When you lose that, you make big mistakes. I love and miss y'all. I want to thank my 2 attorneys, and most important, my 2 social workers for coming to visit and check on me throughout these 8.5 months when I didn't have the privilege to see or get family support physically. That made y'all my family. I super appreciate those visits and conversations, making me smile when I was in dark, depressed space, caring more for me than I did for myself. I love y'all for that. Now, family, friends, behave yourself. Show respect in proper manner in and walking outside this courtroom. I need y'all to use that energy in a positive way for something greater. It's time to be mind rich. Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything further on behalf of the defense?
Your Honor, the only other thing is that we'd ask this court to find Mr. Bissell indigent and apprise him of his appellate rights, and we also ask the court to consider appointing Timothy Sweeney as appellate counsel. Thank you.
Thank you. To his daughters, obviously, one can measure the character of a man through how his children turned out. So your father obviously was a great role model for you, and obviously the support of his firefighters here today, he meant a lot to them as well. So anything I say will obviously not ease the pain. I just hope you can move forward with your life. Remember the good things. Remember the special times you had. Justice is served here today. Justice was rendered through my verdict of murder. And for that, we're going to impose the following sentences. Counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 are allied offenses of similar import and merged for purposes of sentencing. The state elects to proceed to sentencing on count 1, murder. That carries a sentence of 15 to life. Count 5, failure to comply, is a first-degree misdemeanor, and by law, that penalty is 6 months in county jail. It must run concurrent to the felony sentence. With respect to failure to stop after an accident, the court is going to sentence the defendant to a 1-year prison term, which will run consecutive to the 15 to life. In order to run the sentence consecutive, the court has to make the following findings: that the overriding factors supporting sentencing in Ohio is to protect the public and punish the offender and deter the offender and others from committing future crimes. Court believes that given the seriousness of this offense, that consecutive sentences are warranted. With respect to the case number 676-363, the trafficking in drugs, the court will impose a 3-year prison term. That will run concurrent. The 3-year term is a minimum 3 years up to a maximum 4.5 under Reagan Tokes. You'd be presumed to be released on that sentence, even though it's going to run to concurrent to the life sentence. You'd be presumed to be released on that charge after 3 years. That presumption could be rebutted if the defender commits offenses while confined. He's considered a continued threat to society. He's been placed in restrictive housing, and the offender security classification is, I believe, it's a 3. Be that as it may, that's very redundant here because he's serving a life sentence. On the drug case, I will waive the mandatory fine since the defendant is indigent. You will have credit for time served. On the failure to stop after the accident and the drug case, you will have post-release control, even though if you get out, when you get out of prison, you'll be subject to the parole board, but you will have on the felony 3 up to a mandatory, or rather discretionary 3 years post-release control. Actually, it's 2 years post-release control, excuse me. And on the drug case, it's a minimum mandatory of 1 to 3 years post-release control. Post-release control can involve restrictions on your activities. If you were to violate those, you can be returned to prison for up to 1/2 of your original sentence. I will appoint appellate counsel. I'm not sure they've asked for Tim Sweeney, but it's the court's discretion who to appoint. You have the right to counsel at state's expense, right to a transcript at state's expense, a right to a notice of appeal at state's expense. On the failure to stop after the accident, I'm going to give you a lifetime driver's license suspension. Anything further, counsel, that I may have overlooked?
Your Honor, I just want to clarify the drug case is case number 678102.
Very good, thank you. Anything further?
Nothing, Judge, thank you.
I did it. Lifetime. Sheriff to transport credit for any time, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
A final wave to family and friends by Leander Bissell, being led away after being sentenced to life in prison with a first chance of parole at 16 years. Murder carries a mandatory life sentence with the first chance of parole at 15 years. That's mandatory. We knew he was going to get that up front right away. There was a debate on the failure to stop after the accident. The state was pushing for anywhere from 2 years to 8 years to be added on to that parole idea. So they wanted it to be anywhere of parole chance at 20 to 23 years. The judge didn't go that harsh. He tacked on 1 more year. So it is life in prison with the first chance of parole after 16 years. That does not mean he will be given parole at 16 years. I was watching some of the comments on Facebook. There was a little confusion when the judge started talking about a house, halfway house after he was out. The judge was merely giving him his rights. That was the 3-year sentence he was given for drug trafficking. That 3 years is going to run consecutively, meaning when he starts day 1 serving his life in prison, the clock will start on the drug trafficking, and that would presumably run up after 3 years. So the judge had to advise him, if you were let out, you would have to go to a restrictive house. That's not going to happen, obviously, but the judge had to read him his rights in court. We see fellow firefighters comforting the daughters of Johnny Tetrick. How incredibly powerful that all 3 daughters had the strength to get up and read their victim impact statements. And his one daughter saying, looking right at Mr. Bissell and saying, Mr. Bissell, I do not hate you. I hate what you did. And it looks like we're going to get a comment here from the head of the Firefighters Union. Let's take a listen.
Am I ready? Yes, sir. Yep. Go ahead, sir.
I wasn't prepared to speak today, but I just want to say these 3 strong girls have given strength to over 750 Cleveland firefighters throughout this whole ordeal. We have fed off of their strength. I know the guys I've worked with for 30 years, some of the strongest, smartest, bravest people you'll ever meet. Many years ago, believe it or not, I have younger children than these girls here. I walked into a church looking at a daycare for my children. In front of me were 3 girls with Engine 22 t-shirts on. I'd never been in this church before. One was Fallon, one was Reagan, she wasn't there yet, and one was Jerry Zimmer's daughter. And I'm like, who from Engine 22 is at this church in Willoughby Hills? And it sort of put me at peace. And when this tragic event happened, so many years later, these girls remembered that I was Mia and Trey's dad. And it was years, I mean, we lived close to each other. We seen him at summer picnics. Johnny always helped us with our picnics. Johnny always helped us with our Christmas parties that we had for our families. Johnny was a great man, as it was said over and over here. I hope to be half the man that he is, half the father that he is. And I know if I am, I'm a great father and a great man, because he was something special. He really was. He stayed at one of the very busiest fire stations in the state for many, many years. He had a chance to go to a slower station. He chose to serve at a very, very high level. You talk to the guys that work with him every day. He was the man. He really was the man. He was a firefighter. We're all firefighters. Some of us are bosses, but deep in our heart, we're firefighters. And that's what we're trained to do. We're trained to help people. And Johnny was the pinnacle of that. I'm so glad I knew him. And I'm so glad I became close to these girls, because like I said, they give some of the strongest people I know strength. Thank you.
Very, very powerful words from the president of the Firefighters Union. It looks like the daughter's going to answer some questions.
Thank you.
And your message that you wanted to get to Bissell too, I think you delivered that well.
Thank you.
Were you surprised with what he responded?
I fully believe that he had no intention of doing what he did that night, and I believe that he is very sorry for it. That doesn't mean that justice shouldn't be served, and I've said it. I don't hate him, and I do forgive him for what he did. I don't believe that he had the intention to do it, and I do hope that whatever the rest of his life looks like is used for good. That's it.
And how do you want everybody to remember your dad? I know you said some beautiful things.
It's a hard question. I think anyone who's followed this can remember the life, what these guys have said. They called him a rock. What we have said, he was our best friend. There was nothing in the world that we lacked from him. Just remembering the Bible verse that was painted on his helmet, remembering the lessons that he taught. Hope that that touches more lives than just ours.
What will life look like for the three of you as you move forward?
I think life will look a lot different. We have each other. We have all of these guys who we were close to before, but now more like family than we've ever known. I think it'll look like having a lot more dads at our weddings and graduations than we ever would have had. So.
And you're smiling.
Yeah.
What makes you smile now?
Knowing where our dad is, I think that there's just a different peace that comes with that. We don't question where he's at. We don't question that he wouldn't have wanted it to be anybody else. We don't have any resentment, and I think that helps us wake up and smile and be with each other and hang out with these guys and go do what we need to do. That's what we were taught.
Do you feel like justice was served today?
I feel like justice was served. It's also, like Mr. Bissell said, he also has children who are younger than us. We got to have our dad for not long enough, but long enough. And we feel very sorry for his children, that will be somewhat missing from their lives. So very heavy heart, as well as thankful for justice being served.
Can I say something in closing? Yeah, sure. Just in closing, we want to thank the judge and court system here, the prosecutors, the public, the outpouring of support on Johnny's funeral was unbelievable. The Q, who donated the facility for the huge funeral, our chief of the division, the mayor, safety director, we just want to reach out and thank all of them for everything they've done not only for the men and women of this job, but for these three beautiful young ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Can you guys do us a quick favor? Can you guys go through and say and spell your first and last name, just so I make sure?
Dan DeRose with 19 News. It is emotional to say the least when you hear the accounts of the man that Johnny Tetrick was, his dedication to service, 27 years as a Cleveland firefighter. They keep reiterating that he was in Firehouse 22. It is the busiest firehouse in the city of Cleveland. You heard the union president say it's one of the busiest in the state of Ohio, and Tetrick had the chance to transfer to a different firehouse, maybe ride out the rest of his career. And this was a message we heard from his daughters the day after he was killed when they held a news conference. They said it there too, that that was not their father, that he wanted to be where he could be the most helpful, the most impactful in his career, and that was at Firehouse 22. We now get the prosecutor, Mr. Michael O'Malley, and his prosecution team taking to the podium to give their consensus on the case.
First, I just want, again, our deepest sympathies with the Tetrick family, his beautiful daughters, and we wish them well going forward as they try to overcome this immeasurable loss. Certainly we want to thank the Bratton Police, the Cleveland Police, and the Cleveland Fire Department for their work in this particular issue, as well as their dedication every day and night in serving the people of their communities. Got to thank our trial team, Carl, Deanna, and Maggie, who did a tremendous job. But much like yesterday's case, you know, there's no win when we come to court. We try to do our best to seek justice, but what you have left is, you know, families who've been both sides of this aisle, who've been damaged by this senseless act. And we see it all too often in our community, whether it's a tragic occurrence like this or the constant carnage from the guns we're seeing within our community. There's just lives that are being destroyed through senseless acts. And again, it's both sides of the aisle. And, you know, that particular night there was a decision made that cost a tremendous human being, a tremendous firefighter, a tremendous father, his life. And, you know, hearing Mr. Bissell speak today, I do believe he's had an opportunity to think about his actions. And I do believe that he meant the words that he said, that he regrets the choices that he made on that particular night, but there's no taking them back, unfortunately, for those wonderful children who've lost their dad, and that department who's lost a mentor and a leader. So, again, the court sits up there and tries to do the best they can in serving justice in an issue like that, but oftentimes that's very, very hard to find and hard to describe and hard to understand, because we do have so many people who will forever be impacted by that horrible decision.
Michael O'Malley, the prosecutor, chief prosecutor for Cuyahoga County, visibly upset by this, getting a little emotional there. This is a city employee who was taken doing his job, protecting out there on I-90. He talked a little bit about Bissell accepting responsibility and apologizing. I do want to note, Bissell said on more than one occasion he is not a murderer, and that's what he was found guilty of murder. The judge himself said that he thought that this was over-litigated when he saw the list of charges, meaning he thought that the prosecutor's office went too far, trying to get a murder conviction, trying to get vehicular homicide conviction. But the judge even noting that it wasn't until the trial and the video came out in the trial that that's exactly what this was. You have to remember, there had been a rollover accident on I-90. It's 8:15 in the evening. Multiple lanes, 2 lanes were closed on the left side, and multiple cars are backed up. Bissell drove into the 2 lanes that were closed. Think about we've all gone through accident scenes and it's stacked up and you can't go anywhere, and those 2 lanes are closed, and every once in a while there will be a police car or fire truck parked on the highway telling you to stay over. That's not what Bissell did. Bissell drove around, went into the 2 lanes that were closed. He even had to drive around a police car that was stopped in the lane, drove around that police car, zipped up to the accident scene doing 50 miles an hour and tried to cut in at the last second. And that's where Johnny Tetrick was, picking up some of the debris from the rollover accident in the highway, and he hit him, and he would later die at the hospital. The judge agreeing that once he first heard the charges, thought it was over-litigated, but then once hearing the evidence, seeing the evidence, that this was, in fact, a murder conviction. We're going to wrap up our coverage. We did have a reporter in the courtroom, very emotional courtroom today, and we will have a complete wrap-up of this on our 11 o'clock news and our noon news, and of course when we start 3.5 hours of news on Channel 19 at 3 o'clock. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News Now. Have a good afternoon.
19 News is everywhere. Download our CTV apps and follow us on social media